Go ahead and charge forward, Jamie, while
Yes,
you're letting people in. And
please do.
and
Please
just a
do.
quick reminder, those of us, those of you who are coming to the call right now, have been on the call before, those who are regulars, that we do this every Thursday, and that there's a couple of things to know about this call. Is this part of the call is intended to give you some good, valuable information that you can apply and use in your coaching business. And then we'll transition into our client-only call after this. So we also invite our clients to come here, and we're so happy when they do come, because they get reinforcement as to what we're working on. Not that it's necessarily in the same order as what they're currently working on, but just a little background to everybody there. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and get the right screen up here.
And I'll just mention real quick as you're doing that, Mark, we've got everybody muted so that Mark can present without interruption, but feel free to, put questions, comments, and also we're going to invite you to, as we always say, play with us in the sandbox. Put in your comments. Mark will be asking questions. We will be opening up for you to unmute and ask a question live and get some interaction going at the end. So we try to keep these tight, these calls. So
yes,
I'll
definitely.
let you go ahead and get started, Mark.
Thank you, Jamie, and all really great points. And as I always say, is don't be a spectator, be a participant. You're in business, so you've stepped into that arena. So you're in the arena, you're on the floor, you're in the ring, whatever you want to use as a metaphor. But this is the time to participate, to ask your questions, to be involved. So I'm going to be pushing you and inviting you to play in the sandbox with me and to participate in the topic that we have today. So today we're going to talk about enhancing your coaching business strategy when it comes to actually speaking with people, when it comes to speaking with prospects, when it comes to the sales process, if you will. And we're going to talk specifically about the benefits of a two-step consultation process. So as I mentioned, this fits into the client kind of acquisition portion of our program. It's actually towards the end of our program. This is step 9 in the 9-step upscale method that we work with. So this is a part of that step where we go into this concept. So how does this fit? What is this? And what are we going to cover today? Well, we're going to cover how a two-step consultation can actually provide a personalized and attentive experience and can help you build trust. We're going to talk about how to uncover your prospects' needs so you can help them achieve significant outcomes. And we're going to talk about why a two-step consultation provides a competitive edge, enhancing your reputation as a coach committed to providing high-quality, transformative experiences. So how come this is important? What's this all about? Why should I even consider doing this? Well, establishing trust is essential to turning a prospect into a client. There's no other way to do it. A lot of people come to us, Jamie and I, and work with us, and we know what's in their mind, and sometimes they even verbalize it in that, how can I get business on autopilot? How can I avoid all this, Jamie calls it icky sales stuff? But the reality is we're in the business of building relationships. And you're not a commodity. You're not selling widgets at the cheapest possible, way or in the fastest way possible in the marketplace. You're having to build relationships because you're solving relationship problems, regardless of what type of coaching you do. When you slow down your sales process, you actually increase the value of your offer. Think about that for a minute. When we're being sold to, or when we're in a sales environment, isn't that true that something that's being peddled or, that we might consider cheap, it seems to have the most intensity around it, the most pushing, the most rushing that goes on, that happens. But when a sales process is slowed down, it takes time. I think of realtors, for example. Most of them aren't great salespeople, but they're great at building relationships and spending time because the value is so high. It's so important. It also matters because it places your priorities where they need to be. And we'll talk about that in a minute. I want to encourage you to stick around. As always, we've got a little gift for you at the end of the call here as a bribe to get you to stick around. And one of the other things that I want to invite you to do too is, people say, why do you do this for free? Well, we do this so that we can kind of pay it forward and let you know what we do and who we are. We're doing this. Our purpose is to build relationship with you with the thinking that if you see a fit and that you think, hey, these guys can help me further, then we'll have a conversation and see if that's reality. That's one of our motivations. How do we keep doing this? How do we keep getting better at it? How do we keep our motivation up? Through your feedback. So I'm going to bring this up right now, and I'm going to remind you again, one of the ways that you can pay us for this valuable information, seriously, something that you could pay hundreds, maybe even thousands of dollars to attend a webinar like this that you're getting for free. What's the cost of the ticket? Feedback. Give us feedback. That's all we ask for in return. So we're gonna give you a link to go there and to give us feedback at the end of the presentation. As a matter of fact, we might even pop that link up sooner rather than later, just in case you need to pop out earlier. So let me ask you a question about all of this. Do you dread sales calls? Type yes in the chat for me if this is something that makes you shiver and makes you uncomfortable, the concept of what we would call sales call. And I'll wait for Jamie to give me a nod or give me some feedback if anybody's playing with me. And hopefully some people on the call don't dread them. And we did by the way, we did a talk on this back about a month or so ago on the dreaded sales call, but we're gonna go deeper, and we're gonna go into a portion of that, if you will. So I want to let you know we're getting some feedback that some people say and you know what, I have to say that I used to be that person. It was very uncomfortable for me when somebody popped on my calendar, and years ago I learned tools and skills and mindset to learn to love those calls. Yesterday I had a couple calls that were just so passionate, so in depth. And I got to tell you, that really floats my boat. I can't wait to have calls like that. So I want you to be there too, because you're not alone. Most people do view sales in a negative context. And let me see if I can shed some light on not only why that is a little bit, but how you can get over that and how you can let that go, if you will. So let me ask you another question. What's your number one priority? When you think about getting on a call with somebody about your services, what would you say is your number one priority? And I'm going to give you a couple options. By no means is this an exhaustive list. Is your number one priority when you first get on that call to build rapport, making sure they like you? Is that what you think your first interaction with somebody is all about? Is it having them know what you do and how you get them results? Is it making the sale, closing the deal, getting the order, collecting the credit card? Again, play with me in the sandbox here and give me one of those or whatever else is on your mind, what you think your number one priority is.
We're getting one.
Okay.
Good. Awesome.
Some ones.
Yeah, even if it's not the right, even if you think it's not your right answer, like put in what comes up.
Take a guess. We're not going to call you out.
Well, we may say what your number is, but
say what your number is, but we're not going to call you out.
We're getting ones.
Lots of ones. Okay, great. So let's kind of dissect these a little bit and spend just a moment on each one. I'm going to suggest to you something that maybe is counterintuitive. And that's number one, building rapport, although it typically happens, is not a priority. A lot of people talk about people knowing, liking, and trusting you, the liking kind of being the rapport part. But I'm going to suggest to you that people don't have to like you at all. I'm going to suggest to you that sometimes you need to break rapport in order to get change to happen. And I think this is a process that happens for many people is when they get into conversation, they're so focused on making a friend, on building rapport, that they have this wonderful chat and then the call ends and nothing constructive really comes from it. Why is that? Because people don't necessarily need to like you, but they do need to trust that you're the one that's going to get them what they're looking for. If I'm sick and I have to call the ambulance or 911, and those firemen or ambulance or whoever, the first responders are that bang through the door, do I have to like them? I could care less what they look like or whether I like them or what their demeanor is. I need them to save my life. Matter of fact, a personal experience. I was in a bad car accident when I was in my early 20s, really bad. Like I was in ICU for 3 weeks. I couldn't breathe. I was on a respirator. a lot of my body was crushed and damaged. And the fellow who saved my life, the thoracic surgeon in ER, was not only known as the supreme asshole of the hospital, excuse my French, but he was an extreme asshole to me. He was a jerk. This guy had no bedside manner, and he was so easy to hate. I mean, literally within an instant, you could dislike this man. And he was like this with everybody. Everybody said the same thing about him. And yet he saved my life. Did he have to have rapport with me? No, he had to get the job done. And that's what was critical. So I want to kind of look at that way and just let you know about that. Knowing what you do and how you get results, well, that comes back. I'm glad, I don't know if anybody said number 2, but that comes back to that old saying of people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. So and that's a flip, right? That's not about rapport. Caring is about understanding someone's pain and not getting enmeshed in it, not getting engaged in that to a level where you're participating in the pain, but that you're the stable resource for them. And making the sale, well, you know what? That's old shtick, isn't it? Making the sale is a natural byproduct of a really good and healthy sales process. So what do I believe is your number one priority? I believe your number one priority when you first engage with somebody is discovering what your prospect wants. It's as simple as that. Discovering what they want. Because until we know that, until we get clarity on that, and by the way, oftentimes what they think they want is not what they really want. So it takes a little bit of dialogue. And if you focus on that as your priority, getting to understand what somebody really, really, really wants, then everything else from there on can work. So let's talk about this in terms of a sales process, if you will. Here's an example. Here's a model, if you will. And I love this. I came across this a while ago and swiped this, but this idea of suspect. I think years ago, I remember hearing that and I laughed. I thought that is so true. It resonates so true. Is that when people first come across you or an idea or a concept that may solve their problem, they immediately go into this suspicious mode. And they're a suspect to you. In other words, you suspect that you may be able to help them, but you're not quite sure. So it's a two-way street. You're both in a suspicious mindset. I love that. I think that's so cool. And the next level to that is then becoming a prospect, because when we're suspicious, that automatically puts us in a mindset of figuring out whether our assumptions are true and whether we're on the right track. Is this the suspect? Think about crime. My wife loves crime, those true life crime dramas and those sorts of things that she watches. And that idea of, the cops finding a suspect, and then they have to go through a validation process. So I think this is really important from the context of getting to know somebody, is you want to be suspicious. You want to look them at it as a suspect. And you can even say this to somebody right up front. You can say, I suspect based on what I've seen that I might be able to help you, but I'm really not sure. So I need to ask you some questions. I need to get to know you a little bit better and know where you're at and what you're looking for in order to determine whether there's a fit. Isn't that more comfortable and easier and less dreaded than coming on thinking you have to pitch somebody on how your great program works? So what I'm suggesting here is that you slow things down. And this is where that first interaction with somebody can really, really be powerful. If you just spend those few minutes figuring out whether they really are a suspect that can move to a prospect or not. There are some real benefits to this. Jamie and I call this a coffee call. Jamie calls it a coffee call, I should say. I call it too, because she turned me on to that phrase. But if we think about it that way, if we think about it as a coffee call, I love the symbolism in that, it's that quick little 10, 15-minute chat to see whether there's an opportunity here for us to move forward or not. Takes all the pressure off. So I would suggest to you that this is something you can really incorporate into what you do by not rushing, having a clear understanding of what your prospects really want. And the first call is your opportunity to do that research. Take that pressure off of yourself. the idea of being able to communicate, sometimes even verbally. I'm not here to sell you anything. I'm here to listen and understand what you need, want, and value. I always keep that phrase in my mind. I want to know what somebody needs, what they want, and what they value. If I can determine those three things, then I can determine whether there's a fit. And all three of those are important, by the way. Somebody can have a need that I can satisfy. They can want what I have to offer. But if our values aren't aligned, sorry, I can't do business with you. So those are three critical things for me. So what we're trying to identify in this first call is we're trying to identify, first of all, and I talked about this, if you didn't see it, I would encourage you to dig through the Facebook group and go back and watch the dreaded, I can't remember what we called it. What did we call it, Jamie? It was called
it was like turn dreaded sales calls into your favorite business building activity.
Something like that. There you go. I love it. Great headline, by the way. If we didn't use that, well, yeah, make note of that one. Yeah. So in that, we talked about what are we looking for? What are we trying to agree upon when we have a call with somebody? So these are kind of fundamental agreements that we can start to even just get a handle on a couple of them in that initial call. Number one is we both agree that you want better outcomes than you're getting now. If we can't agree on that, then what's the sense in carrying on any kind of relationship or conversation? I'm not here to persuade you or drag you along or convince you of something that might be good for you. But if we agree that you want something that you aren't getting right now, that you want a better outcome, then we can go to the next thing. The next agreement is that we both agree that getting a better result is possible. A lot of people leave that out, but it's important because a lot of people are in a mindset state where they've given up. They don't even believe that a better result is possible. So sometimes we need to have a conversation about that. And again, Jamie and I have had many conversations where we've had to part company with people we know we could have helped, but because they were so embedded in the idea that getting a result was not even possible for them anymore, we had to walk away. So these are a couple of things that we want to try and establish in that first meeting with somebody. Now, let me take you to another concept here, which is the funnel. And the sales funnel, the sales process, it all fits together. So if we think about this, it's the first step in the top of the funnel is the awareness stage, becoming aware of each other. And in sales lingo, we call this qualifying, right? So we do that in that initial meeting where we qualify, we define the prospect needs. You can see that in the discovery section. Having that conversation to begin with is really critical because if we can do that in a first step in 10 or 15 minutes with somebody, it's going to save both of us a lot of time, money, energy, and grief if we can't come to some sort of agreement. Isn't that better than spending an hour and a half trying to beat somebody up or drag them through the mud and persuade and convince and try and talk somebody into something? I know it is for me. I never want to be in that situation. So that first call is really critical. Now, I want to bring up one other idea about this first call. Sorry, I shouldn't have jumped there. Is that if your funnel isn't producing a point where at least 20% or more are signing on to your services and that you're feeling like there's a real good predictable rhythm, then I would suggest to you that adding in that first 15-minute coffee call will really benefit you. And I'm also going to suggest that if this is unfamiliar territory to you, in other words, if you're new to this, if you don't have a proper prospecting sales funnel working, then this is really critical. It's essential. And the reason I bring that up, and the reason I think it's essential, is because you're still in the learning phase. And that initial call is an opportunity for you to learn and do your research. So take the pressure off of having to sell anybody anything and use that opportunity to get to know what people need and what they want, because then that's going to make you so much more powerful in your marketing messaging and everything else that you do. Because the more you clarify that, the more you're going to be aligned with what your clients truly do need, want, and value. So think about it that way. My first calls, your first 10, your first 15, your first 25, your first 100 are all about gathering intel. affirming and confirming assumptions that you're making about people, about your prospect, asking them questions. And when you're wrong, getting them to tell you why you're wrong. So we came to this call and my assumption was that you are looking for this. Am I on the right path? No, I'm not looking for that at all. One of my sales mentors used to say, this was back when I was in the marine business. And he said, when people come into your showroom, they're not looking to buy a ham sandwich. And that was back in the old retail days, brick and mortar. When people were walking into a showroom, you knew what they were there for. But when we're in the coaching and consulting space, we need to verify all of that. We don't know for certain what people are there for. So we need to slow it down and take that opportunity to get to know them in terms of what they're really looking for before we can even take it one step further. Jamie, you're a master at this. So I've deliberately got a blank screen up right now because I'm going to bring up another question here. But I'd love Jamie's input because Jamie is a master at the coffee call. And that's something that she does daily with people. So I'd love you to jump into the sandbox here and give us your lessons.
Well, full disclosure, I'm a master at the coffee call because I'm really terrible at the sales part. But no, it is absolutely critical, and it really has made a big difference in everything that we do together. But even if you're a solopreneur and you're doing this on your own, it's just so critical that you do get those agreements that that there is a need, and by setting it up where there is no pressure. One of the first things I say when I get on that call is, I'm not here. Don't feel like I'm going to make you pull out your credit card. We're not going there. That's not at all where this call is going. And so it really is critical. I do have a list of questions. I skip around, or I will adapt based on the conversation, but I really want to uncover very specific things. And depending on how the conversation goes, then I customize the conversation based on that. But it is really important that you get those agreements in place, and that you find that there's some interest. And if so, then you've piqued their curiosity. Then it's like, well, what's next?
Yeah. Yeah. So you're building anticipation and value, right? Sometimes I'll do this. I know it's kind of crass. Jamie cringes sometimes, but I use the kind of the dating metaphor. And this is another one that fits with that. You think about, if we can recall those days, particularly as a guy, the gal that you had to romance and you had to go on date after date and was, before she'd even give you a peck on the cheek, made you want it even more. It built the value of the relationship. And it's the same thing here. Now, I don't want to minimize the other aspect of this, though, is the intel part, is getting to know your marketplace. And this never ends. Jamie and I have been doing this for a long time. And I'm certain, I know without even saying it, because we have the conversations, I don't even need to ask Jamie this question, that every conversation she has with somebody, she learns something new. She learns a little bit more about who we're trying to help and their needs and their wants and what they're looking for. And the newer you are to the game, the more important that is, because that's where you're really green. So it's important just to admit that, and just to come right off the gate, instead of trying to be the instant expert and the person that pumps their chest up and is all egotistical and is going to drag somebody through a sales process. Instead, admitting that and saying, let's just get to know each other first. I want to know what's going to help you the most. I want to know what you really, really, really want.
And if I may also say, like, for those of you who are like in the process of thinking about or creating your program, Mark and I always say, don't build a program until you validate it out in the world. So trying to fit, your program into their life might not be the right strategy. It's like, let your market dictate what you put into your program. It's really critical. Yeah.
I read this the other day, and I'm trying to think of who it was, the lesson from, but forgive me, it might come to me, but the concept was 60%. Getting it 60% of the way there, and then getting it out and getting the validation, getting the affirmation, figuring out where you're on the right track, where you're not. I had this conversation with a client yesterday, as a matter of fact, who was really getting caught in a perfectionist trap, a spiral of refining and refining and refining. And my first question was, how many people have you shown this to and talked to about this and gotten feedback from? None. So there's no sense trying to refine anything. You're just living in a fantasy land. You have to get the feedback. So like Jamie says, that initial draft of your program literally needs to be quick and dirty and a draft. And the way it's going to get great is the more feedback and the faster you can get feedback from prospective clients and clients, the better. Until you get to a point where people are saying, I want that. That's great. So the first call, no, I don't really want that. I don't want that. But I do want this, this, and this. And then the next call is, now you've built that in. They go, oh yeah, I like that. I like that. I like that. But I'd really like to see this, 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 and this. And then the next call, you've built in then the next this, this, this. And that person goes, wow, I really like this, 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 this. When there's this one piece, though, I'd really like to see more there. And then by that next call, you've got all of that in place. And then you're starting to get that response is, wow, you've really thought this through. You really know me. That's what these coffee calls can do for you.
We know too, we've had clients who have pre-sold their programs just on doing their kind of getting feedback part of what we do. And people say, when your program is ready, I really want to do it. And it's happened. So people have pre-sold their programs just in having these kind of coffee calls, if you will.
Yeah. Yes. Like literally not fleshed out their program at all, just basically a draft, 9 points, going out there to the marketplace, refining those points. And then after they really validate that this is what people want, then building the program.
Yeah.
Really powerful stuff, really powerful stuff. So let's just, we're kind of moving into this naturally right now, Jamie and I, as we often do. But I'd love to know from the group, what are your takeaways from what we've talked about? Any aha moments for you? Are you in line with what we're talking about? Let me give me some feedback as to what your takeaways are. Awkward silence. Jamie, are you reading?
I'm reading. I'm not seeing anybody responding to that just yet. I know Johnny had put in for your 3 questions. Oh, Johnny has his hand up. Johnny, let's open your mic if you would.
It's open.
He put none of the above was his response to your questions. Okay, go ahead, Johnny. Sorry.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
We can.
Yeah, Mark, I've subscribed to this principle for 20 plus years.
Awesome.
There's a lot of different reasons that I found work, but just some things that come to mind. It just takes off the pressure. You know, most people, when they engage the salesperson, their guard is up.
Yes.
And it just takes that guard down. And when that guard comes down, they're more open and receptive to having the conversation.
Yes. Yes.
So I found when you tell them up front, like Jamie does, we're not making any decisions today.
Yeah.
This is strictly conversational, me learning about you, you learning about us. And you can just see that relief on their face.
Yeah. It's huge. I love it.
Reason. And another reason is it just takes away that pressure. They assume they're going to try to be closed by a salesperson.
Yes.
So again, you say don't chase. It's another way of not chasing them.
Yeah.
It gives many people time to get off that call and time to think.
Yes.
To process, do their own research, do their own diligence. When they come back to that second meeting, I pretty much know it's going to happen. It's going to be or they wouldn't have come back.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I mean, there are a lot of reasons for it, but yeah, I'm totally on board with what you're saying. It's a beautiful thing and it works beautifully.
Yeah. Wonderful. I think one of the other takeaways for me always on this topic is the concept of building, not building, but acknowledging and appreciating value. Is that I'm willing, if you're going to invest in this solution, if you're going to invest in this at different levels, both your time, your money, your energy into this solution, then isn't it worthwhile me investing some time in you? And working together to make sure that we're on the right track. I know, like, Johnny's our resident sales expert and our sales coach. And I know Johnny would appreciate this too, because I know I've spent most of my life in sales, growing up, always being an entrepreneur. And what I've found over and over again is those easy sales, the ones where, oh, don't tell me any of the stuff. I don't need anything. Where do I sign? Inevitably, I think almost all of them fall through.
Yep.
Because we have to go through the discovery process and that getting to know each other and that making sure that there's a fit in order for both of us to be committed. And it kind of comes to that agreement, that concept of agreements. So I love that. Thank you, Johnny. I really appreciate you participating in your feedback.
We have two more comments. So Aiden says, getting to know the client, what they need, want, and value. That's her takeaway. That's
great.
Wonderful.
You do that enough, you keep doing that over and over again, and you will build an unstoppable program and offering that people can't resist, because there's lots of needs out there, lots of wants. And as long as the values fit with your values, then you're going to have, you know, a stream of clients coming to you.
And Beth said that she does it. She says, I do a chat with Beth call as a meet and greet to get to know each other. So it sounds like you've got that in place, Beth. That's great.
Great. And I would suggest too to be, you know, be scripted in a sense. I use the word scripting, but in other words, have a plan when you go into a call. And that's why I kind of harped a little bit about the rapport idea, is that this initial call is a business call. So we don't want to think about it, well, we're just going to get on the call and see if we like each other. No, the purpose of our call, and you can even say this, the purpose of our call today is find out if you have a need, if you have a want, if you have a desire, if something's going on in your world that you're struggling with, that you can't seem to get a solution to, and I have something that can solve that, that's my outcome that I'm looking for in this meeting, just to see if we can see if there's any common ground there. If there isn't, we part friends, and that's great. And maybe I'll even have some suggestions for you to send you on your journey to help you solve that problem. But if there is an inkling of a fit, then what I'm going to do at the end of the call is I'm going to invite you to another call where we can go deeper. We'll spend a little more time going into that just to validate my assumption and to see if we're really there. So it can be as simple as that, but really prefacing it up front when you first get onto the call. Hey, here's our purpose for meeting today. You know, here's our agenda, if you will. Is we're here, you know, to discover whether I've got something that can help you to get to where you want to go. And we're not going to spend a lot of time doing this. We're just going to spend a few minutes just trying to see if there's any potential there. Is that okay? Asking for permission. Jamie loves this. The permission-based marketing, sales, advertising, always asking for permission, and then moving it to the next level if we both agree that there's an opportunity for us to explore. You see how that feels good? I mean, it just feels right, doesn't it? Yeah, that second date, right? That second date.
Yeah.
Hey, did we have a good enough time? Or that we'll go out again? Let's set up that second date and go for it. So this, by way of those people who are new to us or haven't seen this before, this fits in. I'm sorry, I clicked too quickly there. This fits into the client's portion of our program, or our 9-step upscale method, where we actually have scripting around this, and we have a way to set this up, and we have a way we debrief with you and those of you who are clients in the call. If you're here, if you've been here already, you know what this is all about. If you're not there yet, know that we're going to spend some time on this. We're going to debrief with you these initial calls, that we make sure that you are in that state where you're in control and you're in that process of discovery, so that you can move this to the second date. So that's where we fit in the upscale method. And as promised, we have a special gift for you. And I think this gift is really, really appropriate. There we go. This is part of our selling process. We call it selling with style and integrity. It's a bit of a manual, if you will, and then there's a template that goes along with it. That's what our clients get and work through. And part of this is a debriefing module, which is basically a 2-page debriefing thing with a series of a few questions to debrief your interactions with people. It's very, very powerful. We want to give this to you as a gift. And we want to encourage you that the next time you have a conversation, the next number of times you have a conversation with a potential client, that you take a moment to debrief and write your notes on this. Do some printouts or do it on screen, however, whatever works for you, but actually debrief and get in the habit of debriefing. And those of you who are clients, we're gonna hold you accountable to do this, and we're gonna get you to share your debriefing, and we're gonna discuss that with you so that we can help reveal any blind spots or anything that you might not be seeing, and help you be on that pattern of continuous incremental improvement. So that's our gift for you. If you'd like a copy of our debriefing process, quick little 2-page worksheet process, then just type debrief in the comments section.
And I just want to bring attention to Mark at the top. It says your gift, the ultimate guide to raise your price. That was last week's gift. So I want to make sure that if there is any confusion, that people know that's not the offer this week. It's the selling with style and integrity.
Yes, it's the picture in the middle there, and just ignore that first line. Thank you. A little bit of a typo there.
All right, great.
So again, those of you who are guests today, just to reiterate why we're here and what we do, very briefly, if you're ready to implement a proven step-by-step method for creating a coaching business that earns you a full-time income, an exceptional full-time income, doing what you love without being stressed, overwhelmed, or simply bogged down doing things that aren't getting you the results that you really want, then go ahead and book a time and we'll have a chat. We'll have a coffee together. And we'll talk about a game plan for you and see if there's a fit and if there's a way that we can help you move the needle to the next step. Once again, no pressure, no persuading necessary or involved, just a great call where we can do some problem solving together. Love to get your questions and comments, and also love to get your feedback. And Jamie, if you have the ability
I just
to
put it in
that
the chat.
link in, this is something that, and full disclosure here, we changed formats back a few months back, probably late in the year, last year, early in the new year, where we're using a different platform, and this all appeared, we had it all set up, and it appeared automatically on your screen at the end of the presentation. But when we changed platforms, we forgot that little piece. So we just had this aha moment that we haven't been getting feedback, and we finally went, why aren't we getting feedback? Well, because the infrastructure is different. So we're going to see if we can figure out a way to have this automatically pop, but we want you to please take a moment right now. Just even if you're sticking around for the rest of the call as a client, just open that window. Do us a favor, click that link, open the window, then you can just leave that tab. And after we wrap up, we'd be grateful if you would give us feedback. Those of you who are guests, please click that link right now so you've got that tab open, because we're going to conclude this part of our meeting and our session. And we're going to move on to our client-only implementation call, unless there's any other questions or comments.
Yeah, feel free. If you have a question or comment, you want to open your mic, go right ahead and do that, and we'll call on you.
We'll give a countdown here.
Yeah. And then if anybody does have any questions or comments, like Mark said, we're going to transition to our client only. We've got several clients on the call, so we'll transition there. And those of you who are guests, I don't mean this to be rude, but we're gonna, if you don't leave on your own, I'm gonna just invite you to the waiting area.
Yeah.
Okay,
so we're gonna bump you off, but please click that link. We'd love your feedback. Please let us know how we did, and if you found value in this. Click that link. Go ahead and do that, and we will say adieu to all of our guests, and we'll transition now into our client only.